Let me ask a question of Tom, and then I'll come to any questions we may have from the audience. Tom, we've been talking all day in those side events and also with previous speakers about the importance of strengthening resilience in agriculture, in smallholder farmers, in landless workers. Everything seemed to have been focused on the rural area. Yet there's a dramatic increase in the number of urban people who are confronted with all kinds of risks and uncertainties that need some support in strengthening their resilience. Where do you come out as director of USAID's resilience department? Where do you come out in terms of relative weight to each of these, or do you ignore that and simply say what we do is good for everybody?
Thanks, Barrett, for a really excellent question. I think maybe I can answer that by talking about what we mean by resilience at USAID, because it is very much the latter, that we think across all the sectors. We always say that all good development contributes to resilience, but it does not equal resilience. So for us, resilience is a particular analytic, conceptual, and organizing concept that we use in a very particular way. And there are a couple of signature features in the way we think about resilience. The first is that an explicit recognition that resilience deficit areas must be a priority for our development efforts. And this hasn't always been the case, so we need to make explicit development investments in those areas that traditionally often saw only humanitarian assistance. The second is a recognition that these shocks and stresses we've been talking about are a perennial feature of the context in which we work. So it's no longer acceptable to talk about these shocks and stresses as acute emergencies. Thank you very much. And thirdly, we are making an extreme effort to leverage our humanitarian and development actors' perspectives and resources in the best way possible. And we have set up in the field what we call joint planning cells that bring together in the Horn and the Sahel these resources, these actors, to do joint problem analysis, joint planning, and joint implementation. And so we're very, very happy that these are moving forward. So again, we don't look at it in trying to balance food security versus water versus health, urban versus rural. They're all very important to us. And I think one of the key things that hopefully we take away from today is this multi-sectoral systems approach is where we need to go to really build resilience of those vulnerable populations.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the audience?
Yes, we do. I'm going to read one question just because we are running out of time, and we'll post the rest outside. Effective resilience requires informed local-level planning involving all sectors and guaranteeing a voice to women. What are examples of good national policies that encourage and empower this to occur?
Thank you very much. Who would like to tackle that question? I don't believe it was addressed to anybody in particular, but don't hold yourself back. Nobody has the answer to that question? Then we need a different panel. Come on, you guys. You must all have answers to that question.
I certainly don't have the answer to the question, but I want to make an observation. The audience is not jet lagged either. They too are asking hard questions. A good policy intervention. Let me think about one. But pardon me again, moderator, I have to draw it from the livestock sector, if that's not too much.
You're forgiven.
There has been, for example, in the pastoral areas, considerable conflict between wildlife and domestic livestock. And based on good evidence, ILRI government of Kenya and many partners worked on how benefits from the wildlife and the coexistence of pastoral systems and wildlife systems could produce and how the benefits can be shared. And the Kenyan government has adopted that on a trial basis in certain places. I would say that is a good example of one case where we had evidence about what might really improve a situation, and the government was bold enough to act on good evidence.
Okay, any other takers, or we'll go to the next question? Yes, sir.
Well, I suppose it does require some response. I would have instinctively believed that rather than looking for a solution which is putting silos, dealing with problem of women, dealing with problem of youth and the like, I think it's much healthier and more practical if we were to think in terms of streamlining the needs of these in different activities. And one area which could possibly give a good result is if we focus, again I come back to the community. Because it will be very difficult to empower women without, in the first instance, bringing decision-making to the community level. The lower you go down, the greater the probability that you can also tackle the problem of gender. What does that mean? To begin with, at the political level, decentralization becomes very important. We have seen it in Ethiopia. Not simply decentralization in terms of political level, but also linked with fiscal decentralization. Whatever little money you can give from up there, the federal government, to lower at the district level, if you give the budgetary support as a lump sum support, then you are going to hold the community, the district, responsible for how they use that money. And in that context, women can find their voice. There could be other such examples, but in general, the way we try to approach it here in Ethiopia is by streamlining issues of gender across different activities.
Thank you very much. You in the audience don't know how good you have it. I'm looking at a screen here that says 2 minutes and 32 seconds, and if I don't finish by then, well, Julie's never going to invite me to do anything else for IFPRI. So we're going to have to end the panel discussion here, and I'll just spend the last 2 minutes, and now it's only 20 seconds, just hitting on a few highlights, and then we'll go to the reception, I hope. First of all, the political economy aspects, very, very important. Who are the most vulnerable? Who needs to strengthen resilience? And who are in power to make things happen? Those in power may not be the one that really needs to have their resilience strengthened. Resilience for whom? And where do we go to make this happen? We've been talking all day about the importance of a systems approach to improving resilience. And this I take to mean not just a systems approach, but also a systems approach to improve the resilience of systems, the environment within which people operate. We're not talking about individual households, I believe, in this particular context. But what we are talking about in this context is gender specificity, and the panel members have referred to that. The risk exposure, the ability to cope, very gender specific. Who has access to the resources? Who is mostly exposed between men and women to the kinds of uncertainties that we're talking about? We need to worry about how to make the solutions compatible between the immediate needs for a solution to avoid irreversible damage to individuals in whichever way, health or otherwise. Combine that with the long-term, more preventive kind of approaches that we also have been talking about in the panel. And there may be some trade-offs. Hopefully we can have multiple wins so that we can do both at the same time, and also satisfy the overriding objectives that consumers and producers and traders and other stakeholders have. Because it may well be that the objective to strengthen resilience is subdued relative to certain other objectives. So let me end this panel by suggesting that we need, over the next couple of days, to talk a lot more about what's going to be different in what we do once we leave this conference. Are we just going to continue to do the same as we've been doing the last 10 years or 20 years? Or is there something new here that we really need to incorporate in our efforts to make the world a better place? So let's think some more about that. The panel members have made a number of suggestions, and there will be many more coming up over the next 2 days. So please join me in thanking the panel for a great set of presentations.